Hey, it's your old pal Lucid Stu again, and we are back looking at the Federal Railroad Administration high-speed rail corridors. In this video, we'll head to the Heartland for the South Central Corridor. This corridor, created by the FRA in the year 2000, is defined as running from San Antonio, Texas to Tulsa, Oklahoma via Fort Worth, and Fort Worth to Little Rock, Arkansas via Dallas. Since this is a pretty big concept, we'll explore the space in two videos. This one will cover San Antonio to Tulsa. You might notice that Houston is not included in this corridor. I will cover Houston to Dallas and Texas Central Railway later in its own video. Let's take a look at the region in which the South Central Corridor resides. States involved are Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. Those have a combined land area of about 390,000 square miles, which is about 8 New Yorks. Within that area lives a population of 37.6 million for a density of 96 people per square mile. That's about the same as the overall US population density. Most of that land and population is thanks to Texas, which is also one of the fastest growing states by percentage and the fastest by absolute population gain. The corridor spans several major metropolitan areas within the region. Let's look at the ones involved in this video by population. Fort Worth is part of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, home to 8 million, making it the fourth largest in the United States. Fort Worth's city population is just under 1 million, making it the 12th largest in the country. The San Antonio Metro is home to 2.7 million, the 24th largest in the United States. San Antonio is the country's 7th most populated city and will probably overtake Philadelphia for the number 6 spot within a few years. If you're not from Texas, you'll probably be surprised to hear it's actually a bigger city than Dallas. Austin's metro claims 2.5 million residents, making it the 26th largest. It is the 11th largest city. It and Fort Worth have nearly identical city populations. Austin and San Antonio, 70 miles apart, are rapidly growing into a combined mega region, similar to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. In Oklahoma, we have Oklahoma City with nearly 1.4 million people in its metropolitan area. You probably don't imagine it in these terms, but the city has about the same population as Denver. Tulsa has a metro population of just over 1 million. Those metros are the 42nd and 54th largest in the country, respectively. All 5 metros have their own international airport, with Dallas-Fort Worth International being the largest by far. It is an American Airlines hub and the second busiest airport in the country. It should also be mentioned that the Texas metros are among the fastest growing in the country, with the Oklahoma metros growing at a less robust but still healthy pace. The route as described by the Federal Railroad Administration is similar to a portion of Amtrak's Texas Eagle from Chicago to San Antonio, combined with the Heartland Flyer, which connects Fort Worth and Oklahoma City. Amtrak's quote-unquote high-speed aspirations here are of the 110-mile-per-hour diesel-electric kind. Given the decades and billions of dollars that transformation would require, the idea of this series is to see what it might be like to leapfrog 110 miles per hour and go straight to electrified true high-speed rail. This concept has been studied before, and I don't mean Texas Central. In the 90s, there was an effort in Texas to organize a potentially Texas Triangle spanning system of high-speed rail using French technology called Texas TGV. This would have used a lot of greenfield routing, some not as tenable now as it was 30 years ago, especially considering the trouble Texas Central is experiencing with local landowners and governments. Texas TGV ultimately failed to get started for a variety of reasons. I'll get into that more when I cover Texas Central. As a result, I'll try to minimize land acquisition in the following route by using existing rights-of-way. Speaking of that, before we start with the route, let's look at the guiding principles that shaped it. Our core principles are speed and safety, cost, and urbanism. As you can see, each has its own subset of principles. For this route, I have adjusted my speed and safety philosophy slightly, and will not be avoiding freight rail quite as much in this video. I'll explain as we go. For tech, we're looking at an off-the-shelf high-speed rail train set and system that will allow cruising at 200 miles per hour. Let's start our adventure on the south end of the route at San Antonio Station on the east side of downtown San Antonio. This station is convenient to the Alamo Dome as well as the Convention Center. There is also plenty of directly adjacent land available for redevelopment. The general idea is to double track the entire route with through tracks at stations. When freight right-of-way is involved, this would be in addition to existing tracks. In San Antonio near the station, this would require significant changes. Damage would be half light industrial and half residential. There are some local relocation opportunities. Industrial, you'd probably want to move out of the area to make room for appropriate redevelopment. This would be slow speed for about 4 miles until reaching Interstate 35, then about 90 miles per hour for 9 miles before reaching a small hill that freight currently goes around. We'll go under in a 2-mile tunnel and start cruising at 125 miles per hour, which the freight right-of-way supports as is from there. This Union Pacific right-of-way is mostly single-tracked through here and has room for 4 tracks. That is the type of freight right-of-way we're looking for, one with the possibility of accommodating 2 additional separated tracks, assuming that the freight rail company will not want to electrify. What if they will electrify? We'll touch on that later. This would continue for 15 miles until reaching New Braunfels, where I have a stop. New Braunfels has a population of 100,000 and is part of the San Antonio Metro. It is home to the Schlitterbahn Water Park. This is kind of close to San Antonio, but my reasoning is that we're not yet able to go tremendously fast, so it's more like an intercity express service. And this area is slow and difficult anyway without a tunnel of 4 or more miles. Also, freeway rights-of-way in Texas are special, but I'll get to that in a bit. I have the New Braunfels station on the northwest end of downtown within walking distance of most of downtown and Schlitterbahn. Plenty of redevelopment opportunities in the area. I'm also making an assumption that a local rail spur could be closed and its served businesses located nearby. Out of New Braunfels to the northeast and 14 miles further is San Marcos. This is a city of 70,000 that is home to Texas State University, which has a student body of almost 40,000. For this reason, I have another stop here. So far it's been kind of San Antonio commuter rail, but things will open up from this point. I have travel time from San Marcos to San Antonio with the stop in New Braunfels at 35 minutes. Northeast of San Marcos, we will transition out of Union Pacific right-of-way and join Interstate 35. Since we're utilizing interstate right-of-way here, let's address what is special about freeways in Texas. Frontage roads. Yes, they just love constraining the right-of-way with roads that aren't the freeway. This makes utilizing freeway right-of-way as conduits for rail challenging when the median isn't available. This is a big reason I'm going to look to freight rights-of-way a lot more in this video than I normally would. South of Austin, our route will transition to State Route 45. Two reasons for this. Number one, Austin's core is nearly impenetrable at speed and maybe at all without electrifying freight. Number two, Austin's Eastern Bypass Freeway has an available median. State Route 45 then transitions into State Route 130 heading toward the airport. One possibility here would be a slower speed local through Austin in addition to the higher speed bypass. However, this would need to be nearly 40 miles long by itself. To my European audience, please understand what we're dealing with in the United States. This is a metro with 22% of the population of Paris, France, and it is geographically only 20% smaller. As a result, I'm sticking with the bypass only, and local transit can handle the rest. I have our Austin stop at Austin Bergstrom International Airport. Austin's CAP Metro is currently planning a light rail line between the airport and downtown. It could easily be extended to hook up with a nearby high-speed rail station as well. There is a lot of potential for development here, but you have the drawback of it being right next to the local prison. Slow out of the airport back to State Route 130. A short bypass would be possible here, but it seems unlikely you'd want to skip an Austin stop. Then it's on, in, or around State Route 130 to the north for 40 miles until once again reaching Interstate 35. The main purpose of utilizing the interstate here is to cut down on greenfield routing by about 20 miles. Some of that would, however, be required as Interstate 35 becomes untenable around Salado. I then have 20 miles of greenfield hooking up with State Route 363 to bypass Temple. A single-tracked local and a stop in Temple are possible to serve the Killeen Temple metro of approximately 500,000. However, we'll skip it in our express time calculations. Time to Austin Bergstrom from Temple would be 32 minutes though. From State Route 363, our high-speed train would utilize Union Pacific right-of-way to hook back up with Interstate 35. The two rights-of-way combined and space between afford an opportunity to reach 200 miles per hour for about 20 miles before diverging to the north toward Waco. Going through Waco was not the easiest decision, but the alternative was 40 miles of greenfield routing and a much less desirable station for the area. Freight right-of-way through Waco could be adjusted to support 110 miles per hour with minimal damage. Travel through the core of the city would be at grade for about 3 miles, but trains would be slowing for the stop anyway. Our station would be located at the downtown transit terminal, which is quite central to downtown Waco and a metro area of 300,000. Out of the Waco station to the northeast and continuing through downtown until reaching Interstate 35 again. Here I'm opting to stick with Union Pacific right-of-way because it is very straight in places and wide enough for 6 tracks through towns it encounters. This would continue to just south of Hillsboro, where our route would transition to Interstate 35 West. Interstate 35 West is very straight north of here, and combined with the Union Pacific right-of-way, you're looking at about 50 miles of 200 mile per hour travel until reaching Alvarado. There I have the route transitioning back to Union Pacific right-of-way and slowing down slightly, coming into the Dallas-Fort Worth metro. Interstate 35 runs into frontage road issues through Fort Worth, and I like a stop in Burleson on the far southern edge of the metro, which is well positioned with a nicely situated downtown area capable of absorbing some density. Population there is 55,000 and growing rapidly. Travel time to Fort Worth from Burleson would be 11 minutes. Heading north from Burleson to Fort Worth, you're looking at mostly 110 miles per hour with about half the distance already grade separated. Just south of Interstate 30, we'll head underground between Union Pacific and BNSF rights-of-way. We're doing this to conform with Dallas-Fort Worth high-speed transportation, which is a planned high-speed rail connection from here to Dallas, with a station at Fort Worth under the current Fort Worth Central Station. We'll talk more about DFW HST in the second video for this corridor, Fort Worth to Little Rock via Dallas. Fort Worth Central is located next to the Central Business District and the Convention Center. It is also bounded on its west side by 10 acres of surface parking that could easily be converted to mixed use. Local transit is mostly by bus, but Fort Worth Central also has commuter rail connections to Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, Dallas, and the Burbs. From Fort Worth to the north, we'll get back above ground south of the Trinity River. This will result in about 2 miles of tunnel through Fort Worth north to south. The route would continue between UP and BNSF rights-of-way until they diverge about 8 miles north of downtown. At that point, it would follow BNSF tracks north. Just north of there is a mostly disused spur line that was cut off by Fort Worth Alliance Airport. We'll follow that with a tunnel under the runways. This area has potential future connections to Fort Worth Alliance and Fort Worth Meacham airports, but we'll skip them for now. North of Fort Worth Alliance, the route runs next to BNSF or Interstate 35 or between until reaching Gainesville. Gainesville, a town of 18,000, is a potential last Texas stop before the border with Oklahoma. I have a full-speed bypass to the west of town with an optional slower speed single track at grade local next to BNSF tracks, stopping at a station next to the current Amtrak station. This would connect to Fort Worth in about a half hour. However, our express train will skip it. While on the subject of smaller towns and potential additional stops, a project like this would also facilitate some amount of regional local service. Here are the various additional places such trains could stop. This would connect an additional 400,000 people to the larger metros on our express route. Moving into Oklahoma, Interstate 35 has a generous geometry as well as an ample median with a couple of exceptions, like through Ardmore and through the hills between Springer and Davis. This remains the case for about 100 miles until transitioning to BNSF right-of-way just south of Norman. I like Norman for a stop because it's home to the University of Oklahoma Sooners, a sizable downtown area and a population of 130,000. Travel time to Oklahoma City from Norman would be 11 minutes. Continuing north on BNSF right-of-way to Oklahoma City, this right-of-way is a mixture of single and double tracking here with a width suitable for 4 to 6 tracks. The right-of-way moves through the city proper on a platform as wide as 120 feet, providing room for 4 tracks at the old Santa Fe station in downtown where we will stop. Believe it or not, Oklahoma City is the only city in this corridor other than Austin to have local railed transit with its streetcar. A streetcar station is currently located at the Santa Fe station site. The station has good access to amenities like the convention center, arena, stadium, financial district, and shopping district, but housing is only on the periphery of its walkable area. Moving north of the station, the right-of-way is a little more constrained and you're looking at some damage. Interstate 235 would likely need to be realigned slightly west, resulting in the loss of an entire block of small apartment buildings and half a dozen single-family homes. Probably minor compared to when the freeway was put in originally. North of there, our train would make a hard right at Interstate 344 at about 75 miles per hour and ultimately transition to Interstate 44. That whole situation could likely be pulled off more elegantly than you're seeing by rebuilding a freeway transition or two, but that's easier said than done when working with Google Maps visualization data layers like this. Interstate 44 with some minor deviations is fast, 200 miles per hour most of the way to Tulsa as soon as it starts exiting the Oklahoma City area. This is as good an interstate route for this purpose as any in the country. with lanes taking up only about 1/4 of a roughly 480-foot wide right-of-way. This does change entering the Tulsa Metro around Sapulpa, where the interstate geometry becomes less favorable, but that's okay, only 15 miles from the ultimate destination. Near the beginning of this video, I posed the question, what if freight rail companies agreed to electrify their lines? Let's look at an instance coming into Tulsa where that would make a big difference. Here we have a crossing of the Arkansas River by no less than 5 adjacent bridges in a space only 500 feet wide. As far as I can surmise, there is not a reasonable way to add a 6th through crossing to this mix. This would not be needed if we were able to electrify the existing tracks. Then we could add a track or two and cruise into Midtown in a right-of-way shared by Union Pacific and BNSF, with room for an at-grade station given some reconfiguration. However, we assume this won't be the case, so we'll transition from Interstate 44 to BNSF right-of-way and utilize about 6 miles of viaduct to reach a spot where it's possible to get underground. That would be a mile south of that Arkansas River crossing. With 2 miles of tunnel, the route would reach the southeastern quarter of downtown Tulsa. This area has some really nice amenities like churches, learning facilities, and libraries. There is also an unbelievable amount of surface parking lots in the area begging to be developed into something more useful. Tulsa's entire business district is also within walking distance of this station site. So we finally made it to Tulsa, Oklahoma from San Antonio, Texas. Let's look at a sampling of travel times. End to end, 586 miles in 4 hours, 28 minutes for an average of 131 miles per hour. Oklahoma City to Fort Worth is 199 miles. Our train would traverse that in 1 hour and 19 minutes for an average of 151 miles per hour. Waco to Austin, 109 miles in 43 minutes for an average of 152 miles per hour. San Antonio to Fort Worth, 280 miles in 2 hours and 24 minutes, an average of 116 miles per hour. Tulsa to Oklahoma City, 107 miles in 40 minutes for a scorching average of 162 miles per hour. Austin to Fort Worth, 198 miles in 1 hour 26 minutes for an average of 138 miles per hour. Pretty fast, especially north of Austin. After you're done here, check out my fantastical video about replacing half of Interstate 35 with high-speed rail and see how the times compare. I'm itching to talk about cost, but first, let's look at intra-regional flights for an indicator of longer distance travel demand in this part of the country. For this segment of the corridor, I have daily nonstop flights at 104 with a capacity of about 12,600 seats. That's a decent amount of flights, but I'm leaving out Dallas Love Field, which is where Southwest operates in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, so it's not a complete picture. We'll get that at the end of the next video, Fort Worth to Little Rock via Dallas. And how does our hypothetical high-speed rail compare on time, assuming a 45-minute airport penalty? End-to-end flights have a pretty big advantage. However, relative to Dallas-Fort Worth International, high-speed rail competes very well metro to metro, getting significantly faster closer to Fort Worth. Because of DFW's distance to city centers, it would lose pretty badly city to city. This is good though, because the lost regional traffic would free up space for more profitable long distance and international flights, or delay need for further expansion. On the flip side, the transit penalty to DFW lands on high-speed rail when considering connecting flights. Even then, travel to DFW between Austin and Oklahoma City would remain competitive. Before we discuss the cost of this part of the corridor from San Antonio, Texas to Tulsa, Oklahoma via Fort Worth, let's briefly look at my cost estimation algorithm and some sample results to show that it is capable of producing viable ballpark figures. For these 586 miles of track with 8 express stops and potentially 9 regional stations, I have an estimated cost of $50.9 billion. That is $87 million per mile, with special thanks to the route's mostly rural nature and lower real estate costs in Texas and Oklahoma. What do you think? Is it worth it? Let me know in the comments. Keep in mind there is more to this story. Let me know your predictions about Fort Worth to Little Rock based on this video. Just a reminder, super thanks are now available if you would like to support the channel mission. That way, those funds will go to full Las Vegas trips to provide updates on Brightline West construction when it starts. That will include aerial drone footage. So far, 3 full trips are funded thanks to your generous super thanks. I'm planning to do that monthly, but if the channel can support it, I'm willing to do it even more often. We'll see how it goes. Plenty more videos to come. Up next is the follow-up to this video covering the rest of the corridor from Fort Worth to Little Rock via Dallas and providing the bigger picture. I'm hoping to have that available by Monday, September 16th. But that's all for now. Until next time, I'll see you on that big beautiful freeway.